In my opinion, botanicals are beautiful, and they're beneficial too. So I recently signed up for my second aquascaping competition coming up in September at the Keystone Clash. And one of the things that I wanted to do before I went there is I wanted to practice doing some aquascaping, and I thought maybe it's a good idea to teach you guys some things about botanicals along the way. You guys might remember this algaescape from my last video, where I talked about all the benefits of just having an algae tank and an algaescape, and how it's beneficial for fry and for breeding fish. But it's time for this tank to go to set up my new botanical scape. Now that I've got all the algae out of the tank, it is time for me to go ahead and get started on setting up the substrate that I'm going to be using. Now, because this is not an aquarium where I'm going to be putting a lot of plants, I don't need a very deep substrate. And also because I'm going to be doing a lot of botanicals in here, I actually need to think about what I'm going to be doing in my substrate a little different than what I would do for plants. So because I'm going to be adding a lot of botanicals, what can happen with botanicals is they can break down in the water and they can actually lower your pH, and which can cause an increase in the acidity of your water. So I'm going to be thinking about that as I set up this tank. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a sand substrate, but I'm going to mix in that sand substrate a bunch of crushed coral. That crushed coral is going to kind of break down, make sure my hardness stays up, and keep my water from getting acidic. Normally, I don't love sand substrates, but in this aquarium, it's going to be great because I don't necessarily want the black substrate like I normally want with my plants. Black substrate to me makes plants pop, gives them more of a beautiful look, really makes them step out, and so you see those plants and they're really the focus. But in this aquarium, what I really want to focus in is actually on the hardscape and on the botanicals I'm adding in there. So having a white substrate as a base for that aquarium, I think is really going to look good. Now that I've got my substrate down, next it's time to start working on my hardscape. I'm going to be adding some different pieces of rock and some different pieces of wood, and you're going to have to move them around till you get them looking just the way you want, and it may take a few tries, but you'll eventually figure it out. Now that I've got my hardscape all set, let's go ahead and take a look at the botanicals that I have for this. I got all of these botanicals from Keith over at KJE Aquatics. Now, I absolutely love Keith. He is a veteran-owned company there. He started this company with his sons, and if you take a look at the different botanicals we have here, one, there's a lot of variety, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about each one, but also the prices, guys. Nobody beats Keith's prices over there at KJE. So I'm telling you, go over there. What you're going to pay for some of these is just a third, a half of what you would pay at other places. So make sure you check out his stuff. I'm going to leave a link to his website on the comments below. Keith has a large variety of different botanicals that you can get. And I have some Indian almond leaves, some jackfruit leaves, some guava leaves. Got this catappa bark. And then I have these birch cones and casuarina cones. And then ultimately what I end up using the most of was this botanical pod ditty. And it has all kinds of different pods that I really think are really neat. You can just see there's so many different colors here, so many different shapes. And this is just that one bag that I have there. So, you know, I'm using some of these pieces. I'm also going to be using some of the leaves, but this is just one bag, all these different pieces. And the prices, like I said, guys, are incredible. And then, of course, after I ordered or got all these in, then he got these, and I didn't get a chance to get those too. So what I didn't show is that I actually ended up boiling my botanicals. Now, you don't necessarily have to boil your botanicals, but if you're not going to boil them, I suggest adding them a lot slower than what I did in this tank. And the reason is botanicals are going to basically they're all going to float for the most part. Every once in a while you might find one that sinks, but for the most part they all float. So by boiling them, you're going to get them to sink. Now, if you just throw them in there, eventually they will sink anyways. But the other piece to it is they're going to put out a lot more of those tannins. And although I love tannins, I don't want it so dark that I can't see into my aquarium, which if you throw all these botanicals that I put in here, that's exactly what would happen. Is it would be such a dark water, which it's not necessarily bad for the fish, but it would be bad for me to be able to see and enjoy. So I boiled all of them first, and then I went ahead and put them in. So as I mentioned before, there are a lot of benefits to the botanicals that we're adding into the aquarium. And so I want to talk a little bit more about what some of those benefits are. So the botanicals offer, basically as they break down, they provide polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids. I apologize if I didn't say all those quite right. But they're all different types of antioxidants. And along with those antioxidants, obviously you have the tannins, which also produce antioxidants. So there's a lot of benefit right there. The other thing that's really nice about having these tannins, all these different botanicals, is that they're going to provide antibacterial and antifungal properties to your aquarium to avoid some of those bacteria and funguses that we don't want in our aquarium. They also actually provide benefits for growing some of the bacteria and some of the fungus that we do actually want in our aquarium. That's going to actually provide more food source for things like shrimp and infusoria. Which takes me to the second benefit, that not only do they have health benefits in that way, but they actually provide a food source for your aquarium. So if you have fry in your aquarium, having those different botanicals breaking down does increase the likelihood that you're going to have infusoria, which is a great food source for your small fry. It also produces biofilm, which is another one of those things that your fish are going to eat and enjoy, and is really another benefit to them. It's kind of like, for those of you who drink tea, there's a lot of benefits to drinking tea. Well, it's the same idea. There's going to be a lot of benefits here for our fish. A third reason I think botanicals can be a great addition to your fish tank is it actually does provide a lot of cover to your aquarium, allowing your fry to hide, allowing those small fish to have little places they can go. And there's a lot of different types of botanicals. I have in this, obviously, a lot of these different pods. They make great little caves for fish. Or if you have a really small fry, then they can hide under the leaves or within all the different nooks and crannies of all these different botanicals. So I added some absolutely gorgeous guppies into this aquarium for them to breed. Now, typically when you think of a heavy botanical fish tank, you don't think guppies, because I talked about that pH before. But because of the way I set it up, making sure I had enough buffer in there that my pH doesn't drop, the guppies should be good. There should be enough hardness in my water that they do really well in this tank. I got these guppies specifically from Michael's Fish Room. If you're looking for some beautiful guppies, he often has some of the most gorgeous guppies you can find. He does a lot of breeding in his own house, but he also imports, so sometimes you're getting imports, sometimes you're getting homebred. Either way, they're beautiful guppies. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do find that you want some botanicals, like I said, you can go to Keith over at KJE Aquatics. If you're interested in learning more about that aquascaping competition I'm doing, check out the Keystone Clash. And I think actually Michael, who I got the guppies from, and Keith, who obviously you get the botanicals from, are both going to be at the Keystone Clash in Pennsylvania in September. So if you're looking to kind of set up a tank that looks like this, make sure you check them out. Make sure you head over there. You can check out what's going on at the Keystone Clash. Come over, say hello to me, and check out my aquascape and tell me what you guys think. Hopefully that it looks and turns out as good as this one did, because I absolutely love this one. Have a good one, guys.